Welcome everyone to this United Nations Conference of States Parties on the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities science session on innovations in inclusive early childhood education, co-sponsored by Beit Issie Shapiro and by the Harvard Law School Project on Disability. I'm Michael Stein, the Executive Director of HPOD and also a board member at Beit Issie Shapiro. For today, we'll have time for questions and answers at the end of our session after the panelists present, so please feel free throughout to send in your questions and answers through the Q&A function. The automatic transcription function is available. Please turn it on if it is needed or helpful. We are supported today by Ms. Yasmin, our ASL translator, who allows us to communicate with our friends and to overcome our own communication barriers and shortages. Thank you, Yasmin, for supporting us and enabling us to communicate. Today we have a wonderful panel. We're looking at innovations in inclusive early childhood education. As everyone knows, early childhood education, both for children with and without disabilities, is one of the most convenient, efficient, and empowering ways by which children can enter into school, do well, and go on to a life of success. But with children with disabilities, very often there's either segregation or a lack of early childhood education. And today we're going to look at actually the best practices. What are the innovations in having early childhood education be inclusive of children with disabilities? Article 24 of the CRPD defines the rights of persons with disabilities to education and the obligations of states parties, now 185 out of 193 UN member states, to ensure an inclusive education system at all levels. So this is a global obligation, but we are still seeing that the process of coming up with good practices and with implementing on a country-by-country basis is a work in progress and a challenge. Under Article 26 as well, states parties commit to providing comprehensive habilitation and rehabilitation services and programs at the earliest possible stage. So this panel is going to look at innovative approaches and models to early childhood education that provide appropriate responses to both these fundamental rights. What we have, therefore, are innovators from 4 different continents, several of whom I've worked with and I'm very proud to have. Our panel will begin with Sampada Shevde, Director of Perkins India. We'll move on then to Dominique Dix-Peak, Research and Impact Executive from Africa Tikkun Foundation in South Africa. We'll then have a double duo. We'll have Sabine Weinberger and Doris Schussel from the ICP Foundation of Munich. And we'll end with Yoav Kreim, Director of Community Development and Social Change at Beit Issie Shapiro in Israel. So as we speak, please do send in your questions and answers. We look forward to the presentations by the panelists. I now turn over to Sampada.
Thank you, Michael. Hello, everyone. I'm happy to be here and share some of my thoughts and experiences related to early childhood education. I represent Perkins India, an organization working for children with multiple disabilities and vision impairment in India, and a program of Perkins International USA. At Perkins International, we believe that every child can learn. And we can show you how. Our model begins with the child at the center as we support children to learn and thrive. In the middle circle, we equip adults to teach, which includes mentoring educators, developing leaders, and unlocking family power. In the outer circle, we work towards making education accessible through quality program changes and changes at the systemic level. Perkins International works in 97 countries, and I'll just share a glimpse of our global impact last year. We managed to meet 339,941 children on their learning journey. Over 81,000 educators participated in Perkins trainings and activities. How do we do this in a complex country like India? Before we begin with that, I'll just take a few minutes to talk about our focus for today, and that is children with multiple disabilities and vision impairment. Essentially, any child who has low vision or blindness with an additional disability. On the slide, you see a few examples of children who have blindness with profound hearing impairment, low vision with cerebral palsy, or low vision with a physical disability and an intellectual disability. All of these children are children with multiple disabilities and vision impairment, and these children are the focus of my presentation for today. As I was thinking about what is the ultimate goal of early childhood education, I realized that it is nothing but ultimately enhancing the quality of life of a child with MDVI and, in effect, the family. What is it that we are talking about? We are talking about quality of relationships leading to a lot of positive social interactions. We are talking about access to information. In effect, all of these leading to the child being happy. And one of the many byproducts of all of these areas is the child having a positive sense of self-esteem. This is all that we also aspire for and work towards when we talk about early childhood education for children with MDVI or for children with disabilities in general. As we begin thinking about early childhood education, a key step is to begin with screening in the communities. Screening to ensure that wherever the children are, we identify each and every child as early as possible and connect them to education. Screening in villages, in hospitals, in schools, in camps, wherever the children are. Government health workers involving and integrating our work in the existing system of the government is a very important strategy we use. And an important part of that is training government health workers. In one such training, a government health worker said that now I know that that child can learn. She was talking about a 5-year-old child in the community who couldn't see and couldn't walk. And this training made her realize that connecting that child to education could have a transformational effect on the quality of life of that child. And we realize that these trainings do not just connect children to education, but beyond that, beyond connecting children to education, beyond creating awareness, we are talking about connecting children with a life of independence, dignity, and acceptance within the community. Isn't this something we want for all our children and for ourselves? We also believe in having collaborations at different levels, collaborations with regular schools to ensure children participate in different learning opportunities, settings, and positive social interactions. You see 3 of our students here who are enrolled in a regular school and who are learning along with their peers. Another approach is to think about beyond enrolling these children in the regular school and actually partnering with them to set up educational intervention centers within the regular schools. This is one such center in a regular school in the village where children attend classes as appropriate and also indulge in a lot of recreational activities along with other students in the school. Whatever we do, whether it is work at the center, in the school, at home, family is the most important and most crucial component and the first environment in which the young child develops. So in everything that we do, parents are a very crucial component. And ultimately, ensuring a holistic perspective that begins from acceptance, access to movement, mobility, and ultimately education. I'll just share a short clip of one of our success stories.
Through Project ITI, Naina and Sunaina accessed health and nutrition support. And Naina received a wheelchair free of charge. The Project ITI team advocated to enroll the girls in their local school and train the family to bolster their skills at home. Today, the sisters communicate, learn, and play with other children. These changes usher in awareness and inclusion. As stigma fades, communities grow to appreciate the contributions these unique children bring. Our child-centered approach is not easy, but its impact endures. Together with our partners, Perkins will keep going until every child with multiple disabilities in India is learning and thriving.
And of course, this doesn't happen overnight. It is a continuous process which is full of challenges, but at the same time, solutions to overcome the challenges. As Helen Keller says, do not think of today's failures, but of the success that may come tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sampada. We're going to move to Dominique, and just a quick reminder to our friends who are participating, please feel free to enter questions and answers via the Q&A function.
Okay, can everybody hear me? So I'm going to be, thank you. I'm talking today about the work that we do as Africa Tikkun in ensuring that there is inclusive access for children with disability in South Africa. Africa Tikkun is a not-for-profit organization, and the focus of our work is to ensure that we are economically our youth are economically empowered. Our organization is particularly important within South Africa, where we have desperately high unemployment rates. In fact, in our latest statistics, there's a conservative estimate that young people between the ages of 15 and 24 have an almost 64% unemployment rate. These statistics are obviously horrific and add to the structural and physical inequalities that we have. But I think more specifically, we wanted to talk about the disability in the country because the additional burden of disability for families and young people who are experience disability is dramatic. It's estimated that more than 80% of people with disability in our country are unemployed. And not only that,
for a second, you haven't shared your PowerPoint, and
I haven't.
we're
Sorry.
not benefiting from it. So I'm sorry to interrupt.
Thank you. I thought that it was there, but thank you for letting me know. All right, give me 1 second. Can you see it now?
No.
All right. Can you see it now?
Now we can, yes.
Excellent.
I apologize for interrupting.
No, that's great. Thank you for letting me know. So within this framework of extreme inequality, people with disability are particularly vulnerable within South Africa. More than that, we also have very high estimates of stunting, where more than 25% of our young people under 5 are estimated to experience stunting. In many townships, there aren't enough schools or infrastructure for young people who have disabilities, and families are often forced to stay at home to take care of their children who have disabilities, and so don't have the access to employment that otherwise they would have. And so it's within this framework of not just disability, but also economic exclusion for all of our youth that Africa Tikkun works. And now, so can you still see my screen?
We see the one shot.
Perfect.
Yes, now we do see Cradle to Career.
Thank you. So in order to help with this, Africa Tikkun works within the Cradle to Career model. And this model works within an early childhood development age group from 0 to 6. We work with young people from 7 to 18 around school going age for aftercare and weekends and holiday care. We focus specifically on a youth accelerator program to ensure that young people are given skills that they're able to thrive economically. And then from there, we have a career development program where young people are given the opportunity to get training and skills development and work readiness in order for placement. And we have an alumni program. But within all of this and underpinning all of these services is what we call the Cradle to Career model, which is this gray area on the outside. Within that, we have our primary health care, and this includes working with young people to screen for elements of height, weight, and stunting, so that we're able to work particularly with this group of often orphans and vulnerable children. We have a family support services program. We offer nutrition and food security to our young people at our centers. And for particularly vulnerable people, we offer food security to themselves and their families outside of the centers. And we have an empowerment program, which is where the work around disability falls more specifically. For our disability, we work with at a center level with mild and moderate disabilities. And for severe disabilities, we focus more specifically on working with families and caregivers of children with disabilities, and also with the referral networks to ensure that the young people are able to access referrals if they need them. So our strategy is really focused on ensuring that from a community level and going to more and more specialized services, we're able to refer our children and train and capacitate the people that we work with. So we strengthen at a community level, working with partners, strengthen community understanding and support. We provide training and support groups in terms of services and service provision to our young people and their families. We offer focused and specialized services, for example, occupational therapy, psychiatric assistance, physiotherapy, and social work. And then As I mentioned, for more acute and chronic cases, we work with other organizations to offer specialized services. What this means at a real practical level, and I'm just going to give a few examples, is for the child, what we do is we ensure that there is early identification of developmental delays and disability. So we do screenings and assessments to ensure that we're able to work with our young people. If they are flagged for any kind of developmental delays, we ensure that we have referral and interventions so that we're able to avoid further delays and barriers to their learning. But fundamental to this is working with the parents. We involve the parents right from the start so that they're part of the process and are on board with all of the referrals and all of the interventions. Because what we found is that if the parents aren't part of the process, they don't work towards the early identification and interventions of their children and may delay that process. And so for us, fundamental is the work with the parents. We also do skills development. For instance, we work with our case administrators so that we give them assistance around how to do basic physio or occupational therapy so that the young people in our centers are able to have access to this even when they don't have a physio or an occupational therapist on site. And then, as I mentioned, the issues around economic development is really important because for the carers and parents of young people, they're excluded from many parts of the economy. And so we work with them directly and with other organizations to ensure that they are given the opportunity to have economic opportunities and therefore able to work in ensuring that their families are supported while they're still able to look after their young children. We also work so that these economic activities are more flexible and they're able to provide for their families and for their young children without impacting the care of the children with disabilities in the families. Within our centers, we've recognized that the work with disability, because we are not focused only on disability, is a change management process. And so one of the particular areas that we focused on is training, where we train our teachers on an ongoing basis to ensure that they are able to screen, identify, support, and refer children who have disabilities and developmental delays. As I mentioned, this early identification means that the opportunities for access in the future are much higher for those young people. We also provide specific areas around the curriculum so that the young people have opportunities within their classes to provide training and support and in a play and interactive way. For instance, using persona dolls in the actual classrooms. And then fundamental to the work that we do is around the partnerships and networking. This is really about making sure that that we work at a local level and with national and provincial governments. So at a local level, it means working with organizations in those communities so that we're able to train and be trained by those organizations. We have fundamental what's called our pipeline, which means that we're able to have people from other organizations being provided opportunities within Africa Tikkun for their education and economic development. And then organizations who we are able to refer to in order to provide specific interventions or that are able to refer to us. We also work around partnering with government, and an important part of the work that we've been doing recently is to partner with government so that we are able to take the work that we're doing at a center level and taking it to other areas of the country So working with government so that we're able to provide, for instance, training around how to assess and screen children for disability and how to make sure that they are able to work further, and to give training to these early childhood development centers or stimulation centers that we find at an organization level and at a provincial level. And then lastly, it's around making sure that we're able to advocate for young people with disabilities, both at a grassroots level and working towards stopping stigma, but also at a national level, so that all of the really important parts of providing access to young people with disability are provided not only in legislation, but in practice within the communities that we work with. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dom. And we're going to now turn to Doris and to Sabine.
Hello everyone, my name is Doris Schüssel. I'm the Head of Corporate Development and Content Manager of the Department of Children and Youth.
And my name is Sabine Weinberger. I'm a Communication and Project Development Specialist. Our organization was founded in the year 1956. Since then, we support and assist children, youth and adults with cerebral palsy or other physical and multiple disabilities in our many facilities. Our objective is to provide them with the best possible integration concerning school, work, and participation in society.
When we were thinking about our key issues back then and now, we are still asking ourselves the same questions. What does it take for people with a physical disability to be able to lead a fulfilling, independent life, and how can we support them? What are the barriers and how can we break them down together? What health and social restrictions do our clients have and how can we reduce them?
These key issues play a vital role in our nursery schools, kindergartens, and after-school care. Our experience and our knowledge in the special education system allow us to also operate an inclusive education system. For this reason, all children with or without disabilities can find the best offer for them. In our presentation today, we will focus on the success factors for inclusion in our daycare centers.
On March 26, 2009, the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities came into effect in Germany. Since then, it has been applicable to German law and must be implemented. The legal basis for integrative nurseries and kindergartens here in Bavaria is the Bavarian Children's Education and Care Act of 2015, which secures the integrative joint care education and support. This act includes the Bavarian Formation and Education Plan. A generally binding curriculum increases and ensures the quality of the pedagogical work, and for this reason it also applies to inclusive settings.
One of our success factors concerns architecture. Our houses for children all have large, bright, barrier-free rooms and are thereby appropriate for children with or without disabilities, so for inclusion. It is important to us to design rooms that are multifunctional and yet theme-specific. They are equipped and furnished in such a way that children with and without disabilities can make the best use of them. In addition, there are also suitable care and support options, such as the care bath and the therapy rooms, to enable individual care and therapy. The child does not have to adapt to the rooms. We design the rooms according to the child's needs. The appropriate and well-thought-out environmental design of our houses plays an important role in the success of inclusion, as you can see on the slide here. Our specifically adapted playgrounds are also designed barrier-free. This enables children to play together and also facilitates the cooperation between them.
The child and his parents, educators, therapists, and teachers define goals together and create an IT-based individual development plan with the necessary actions to achieve them. Our digital folder structure makes this plan accessible to every member of a group or classroom at any time. The plans are evaluated regularly. Employees with different professional backgrounds work together in one group or classroom. The following professionals are typically working together: 2 educators, 1 special need educator, 3 therapists, physio, speech and occupational therapist, 1 teacher for students, and if necessary, 1 or 2 personal assistants for our children. Integrative daycare centers are attended by up to 1/3, but at least 3 children with disabilities or at risk of becoming disabled. The composition of the groups varies depending on the age of the children. For example, nursery, 9 children, 6 without and 3 with a disability. Kindergarten, children between 3 and 6 years, 15 children, 10 without and 5 with a disability. And after school care, children in the age of 6 to 10 years, 15 children, 10 without and 5 with a disability. The sufficient resources become available in these groups, even though they are not part of the special education system. We can provide the necessary infrastructure with our educational and medical staff as well as therapists. We take care of all children, regardless of the severity of their disability. This is not the case in many other daycare centers here in Bavaria or in Germany, because they don't have specialized staff or Bavaria-free facilities.
The special needs educators or teachers play an important role for us. They hold a key position because they have special knowledge about disabilities and are the main contact for teachers, parents, and colleagues. They are also responsible for the individual care and support of the children. In Bavaria, this service is normally an external service. This makes it more difficult to guarantee the previously mentioned services. We provide the service internally, which enables us to communicate more smoothly and to respond to the children in a flexible, needs-based manner at all times.
We are guided by the concept of sensitive responsiveness. It is important to us to secure sensitive handling of the children, especially at the age of 0 to 3 years. We provide staff training in this concept and in the basic skills for educating children. If necessary, we also work with video analysis of interactions between the educator and the child. Another success factor is that the children in a group understand each other and find a way to play together. It is therefore always important to emphasize the similarities and not the differences. We pay attention to a balance of age, gender, and a type of disability in the composition of a children's group. We believe that a responsible composition of the children's group promotes positive learning on the model. and that well-designed activities and games emphasize similarities. They have to appropriate for all children.
We also need cooperative processes during our work. This means, for example, that all forms of therapy are available at all times during the children's stay at the daycare center. It also means to realize that parents are the experts on their child's well-being and have to be involved in all processes. You also have to accept that not every solution can be found in-house. One also needs to build a network with other external specialists as well, like social pediatric centers or clinics and other worldwide organizations.
In conclusion, specialized rehabilitation facilities can provide their part for the establishment of a successful inclusive education due to their deep knowledge concerning the most important success factors which we have outlined so far. Above all, inclusion requires a positive attitude. It's important to focus on what everyone has in common and on the variety of positive skills every child has.
Finally, we also see ourselves as learners. We certainly don't know everything yet, and we are constantly developing our offers further. And the children are our best teachers. They show us the way and what they need.
Thank you very much, Sabine and Doris. And we're going to turn to our fourth and final panelist, Yoav Crime. Yoav, the floor is yours.
Thank you all. I hope that I have something to contribute after such an interesting presentations. And I have to start by explaining that I don't have a presentation because some of my disabilities that I cannot read. And when I make a presentation, it's often mean that I speak on one thing on the presentation, so show another, and it's just confusing to the audience, so I prefer to do it without a presentation. I will represent to you a project that we did Beit Issie Shapiro with another really big organization in Israel called Shalim, and with the Ministries of Welfare and Education in Israel, regarding building an inclusive educational communities. We aware that the right for inclusive education is a right that every child with disability have, even in the early ages, and we want to provide it. But we also understand that the children have a right to rehabilitation, and that is a service that mostly in the early ages, it's easier and some say more professional to give in a unique systems for it. So we establish a model that two systems, one regular daycare and the other special daycare, working together as a community, and every children in that community gets what he needs. get a personalized program built for him and for his needs, whether he is with disability or whether he is without disability. And in order to do so, we train the professionals of both systems together, not only about disability, but also about the needs of children without disability. And we train the staff together. We talk with all the parents together and make a dialogue about what it means to be in an inclusive community and what it means for me, the parent, and how it affects my children, both children with and without disabilities. And of course, we are working with the children and help them find a way to communicate and be part, an equal part in that building community that they are educated in. And I want to say that every time we talk about inclusion, we talk about how it's good for the children with disabilities and how it's contribute to their development. And I want for few minutes to talk about the other children and how it's contribute to them, because we are saying that they becoming more good people, they becoming empathize and things like that. Well, maybe it's good for the society, but I want to understand what the individual child gets from it in their relationship with other children. And I don't have a profound research about it, but I want to share with you two stories that my lightning what children without disability get from it. So the first story is about Jonathan. He is a 3 years old child with on the spectrum of autism, and he is in the yard playing with non-disabled children, and as they play, he play with them and sometimes go out, rest a bit, and go back to the group. Play with them for a few minutes, go out again, and go in again after he's rested. Some of his therapists says to me, well, Yoav is not ready for inclusion. See, he cannot hold playing with other children for long. And I said, he really ready for inclusion because he know what he need in order to be included, in order to play. And I started to watch on Jonathan and his friend, and I saw something very, very interesting. The other children allow themselves to take a rest too. They allow themselves to do something unaccepted by the rules because he do it and they can do it too. they can bring themselves and what they needed into the play. And actually the children started to negotiate, to renegotiate what is the rule of the play that we're playing. And with the intervention of an adult, they can do it profoundly and help every one of them to be himself and to contribute to the society, to be part of building the rules against just following the rules. This is an opportunity that children with disability give to the other children in the education system, even in early ages, and that is really, really good for all of the children, because to really know what you're good at, to really know what you need, to really have the legitimacy to express yourself, to be who you are, it's a very, very big gift. I want to share with you another story about Amal in the Arab community in Israel, in Kalaswa, who was a teacher for music lessons for children about 5 and 6 years old. And in the group, there was a very, very severe disability, multi-disability, a child who every time that they need to clap their hands, just give a really, really strong bang to the table. And some of the children started to ask, why are you doing it? It's not comfortable to us. It's not nice to behave that way. And she could go to 2 ways. She could go regularly to say, this is accessibility for him, that's how we can do it, and you have to get used to it. And she could say, okay, if it's bother you that much, maybe he will not be part of this lesson. But she did the third and amazing thing. She asked them, how any of you want to clap his hands? Well, there is the traditional way, but how you want to do it? And every child brings something that you want to bang on, or some of them even said, I don't want to do it with my hands, I want to do it with my legs. And suddenly it was a whole other opportunity to take part in this exercise and doing what you really need to make that beat when it should be in the music, but in your own expressive way. Well, some of the educational professionals said to me when I represented, well, this is a chaos. Well, it's not a chaos.
Yoavi, your microphone has gone off. You need to turn it back on, please.
Sorry, I don't know how it happened. Somebody wants me to be shut down. But it's really not a chaos. because the children know when they need to make the sound, why they need to do it. They know that the traditional ways is clap the hands, and they know they can add to it something of their own. This is a really, really big thing for any child. This is, and we need to really, really use the fact that we have diverse abilities in an educational communities in order to give everybody the legitimacy to be himself and to help the children to negotiate the rules of how it's going to be, and to help them to understand that sometimes I don't get exactly what I want, but I'm still part of this community and I will have a chance another time. If we will continue only see the needs of the children with disability and to use the inclusive ideologically, the inclusive system where the children without disability are just object to include the others, it will be very bad. Every structure will not build on neutral gain is about to eventually collapse. But we have here a really good a collaboration who can really contribute to all parts, really give legitimacy to be weak, to be strong, to know yourself, what you like, what you don't, what you can and what you can't do, and not be ashamed of it. And I really want to encourage all of you to not only think about the children with disability, think wider and think community. Thank you.
Thank you ever so much, Yoav. We're going to ask all of our panelists to return their videos and come back to us. We have an enormous amount of really wonderful questions, and also I congratulate all our participants who have joined us today, because their discussions in the chat are evidencing a great sense of community and solidarity and supporting each other and thinking and discussing back and forth. As a reminder, you're still welcome to put questions into the Q&A function, and the recording of today's side session will be distributed both through Beit Issie Shapiro's knowledge network and through the lists of everyone who has registered, and will, once it's cleaned up, be posted both to Beit Issie Shapiro's website and also to the HPOD website as well. I'm going to ask two questions that are not related to our panelists, and I'm going to ask them to try to answer either one or both, but to limit their remarks to 2 minutes. And so you can choose which one you feel comfortable with, and we'll be moving in reverse order: Yoav, Sabine and Doris, Dominique, and then Sampata, to be democratic and reverse the order. The first question is, how can we attain disability inclusivity in general teacher training? Meaning that a lot of the work that the panelists describe, and it's marvelous, is focused on training teachers specially to interact with children with disabilities, and then doing the reverse inclusion, having children with disabilities along with children without disabilities, all of which is marvelous. But how can we get to the ultimate position where teachers are trained so that they understand that children with disabilities are children, and that they're going to be in their classrooms, and that they need to be able to understand how to include them? That was one question. that you might wish to answer. The other has to do with parental involvement. And several of you have mentioned the role that parents have to play. I cannot agree any more strongly with that statement as a former child with a disability who certainly is here because his parents supported him. But some parents are often reluctant to include their children. Some are embarrassed because of stigma. Some are facing real life resource constraints and feel like they ought to focus on their other children. There are difficult circumstances that exist. So what can we do to better encourage parents to support their children with disabilities and to include them either in your programs or more generally? So one or both of these, please, in under 2 minutes each, and we'll begin with Yoav.
Okay, I will try to answer the two. And for the first question, I think we don't need to train teacher only to understand that children with disability have a place in the classes, in the classroom. We have to train them profound and real massive training of human rights in general. And we don't need to, again, go to speak only about disability. Inclusion in the educational system is a human rights issue, and it should be approached that way, and we need, that is the way to do it from my point of view. And for the second question, I believe that in that training of human rights or in other training of teachers, we need to give them the ability to think family, to not only see the child, to understand the needs of the parents, and to understand that it's part of his or her role as a teacher to give service to the parents as themselves, not only regarding to the child. And again, it's not exclusively for parents of children with disabilities. Teachers need to recreate the discipline and understand that being part of community, giving service to the family, see the big picture. It's part of their job, and not only what's going on in the classroom behind a closed door.
Okay, thank you, Yoav. Our friends from Stiftung ICP.
Okay, we thought about what we could give you as an answer. And the first thing that came to mind for us was, how can we bring someone to work with children with disability? The children can, to get them together. I have personal experience with this. I'm a therapist. At first I was reluctant because I didn't really know much about people with disabilities. And then I started working here. And in this moment, it became clear to me that it's the same for everyone. They need my attention in the same way as children without disabilities. So we think, if you get them together, if you give them the proper training with people who have the experience of working with children with disabilities, they will find their own way, because in the end, we all have to find our way to work together, because every one of us is special. And it's the same thing with parents and seeing a child not only as a child with a disability. You have to involve everyone around the child and to find the common goal. And if you have found it, everyone will want to work together. That's our experience.
Thank you. Del?
Thank you. So I think that I'm going to also try answer both questions. From our side, I agree with what's been said already. And I think that the first is that children with disability, we had a question around, more a philosophical question around what does inclusivity look like? Does it mean having a separate class so that children with disability have a class that they're able to go to, or is it one in which everybody is included? And for us, it is about having all children included. But fundamental to that is the teacher training, because teachers and educators do have their own concerns around the process. So in order for us to make sure that inclusive education is a general right for everybody, means that a lot of work has gone into training our teachers, making sure that they see it as a human right, and that they feel comfortable to be able to hold the space so that everybody's included and it's not seen as one or the other, it's seen as both. So that for us was a really important part of the process. And then in terms of disability and parental involvement, excuse me, I think that the reluctance and the stigma and the resource constraints all play a really important role. And the ability of Africa Tikkun to be embedded in the communities has been a really important part of the process for us. So we work strongly in the communities that we work, that our centers are. And we make sure that there are partnerships, not just with organizations, but also with people in the communities. And we work with parents in terms of helping to provide a support group, helping to make sure that there is economic development, and training them in terms of like what they can do in order to support themselves and be embedded within the community. So for us, the parental involvement has been a fundamental aspect to the work that we've been doing in order to also try to break down those stigma barriers, so that the young people aren't seen as different, but are seen as included within their communities and able to access resources within their communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Sampada?
Sure. I feel based on our experience, when we think about training of teachers in the regular schools, the one thing that has really helped us is thinking about collaboration from both sides or from both aspects. We often think about collaboration only from the special education side, I think, without taking into consideration the challenges of the regular school setup. And one thing that has helped us in our experience is to work collaboratively with the teachers and actually work on creating an environment that is very inviting and engaging for all children, irrespective of their physical or cognitive abilities, irrespective of their diverse backgrounds, for every child to feel engaged in that classroom. And in doing that, we have thought about a lot of strategies together. So strategies that would not just benefit children with disabilities, but any child in early childhood education. And these are some of the strategies that have really helped us as we have worked collaboratively in the regular schools. So beyond training, to actually go into the classrooms and for our team to actually demonstrate some of the strategies and how they work. And the second part for parental involvement, I think one thing that has really helped us is for the parents to interact with other parents, because there's a lot of learning that they have from each other, as opposed to a professional talking to a parent. And when parents see success stories, and when they realize that my child also has the potential and he can also learn. I think there's a lot of parental, not just involvement, but a lot of cooperation and participation from the parental side to actually assist us and give us great ideas to help us understand how to make this entire process work. So I think apart from or more than professional to parent, it's also a lot about parent to parent. So, thanks.
Thank you, Sampada. And there are some wonderful comments in the chat function, praising the panelists for being open and inclusive, thanking them for sharing their personal perspectives with honesty and humility, reminding us that the community must be involved even beyond the parents and the children themselves, and also highlighting that sometimes the parents and the children have different goals, and that it's the children whose lives are at stake and whose interests are truly at stake, and that we need to give them voice, just as we know from the CRPD article on respecting the developing potential and abilities of children. So all those are wonderful comments. I'm going to pull a question out of the Q&A from Prof. Willing, who may or may not remember me, but she's at KwaZulu-Natal and works on this area. And her question to gloss on it is that all of you do wonderful work within the NGO sector. All of you work very hard and do marvelous work in pushing for early childhood development, early inclusive development. But how do we get states to buy into this process? The CRPD certainly requires it, right, under various articles. And very often they don't do it. And the question comes from someone in South Africa, where, by the way, I also hold a chair, and is very poignant because, you know, in South Africa, there's the history of the entire Western Cape not allowing children with what they call severe and profound intellectual disabilities, they use a less polite word, to actually attend school. And Parliament actually published at one point a list of children who have been waiting for 8 years to go into school and still aren't in school. And, you know, and I had a wonderful, lovely argument with Helen Ziller, Vice Principal of the Western Cape at the Down Syndrome International in Cape Town, and told her that her own government and legal department were practicing educational apartheid. She didn't like that, but too bad. So how do we get governments to do this work? You've done the lead, you've set the examples, you've determined the best practices, but how do we get the governments and also development agencies and others to buy into this work and to support it? Because you're marvelous, but what you're doing is also a very, very small amount of the work that needs to be done. And now we'll take the panelists from in the original order. So Sampada, you'll lead off, and then Dominique, Sabine, and Doris, and Yoav.
I think one of the ways is also to think about how we integrate our work into the existing systems of the government. So if we look at it, when we started training government health workers for screening children with multiple disabilities and vision impairment, I mean, the first thing that they said that this is extra work for us. So why should we do this? And do we ever get compensated for this? And it took a lot of convincing to tell them that it's not any extra work they are doing, because children with multiple disabilities and those with intensive needs are also part of the community. And along with other disabilities, it's a part of their job or the part of their duty to also screen these children, refer them, and support the families in the best way they can. So I think one way is to think about how we can really integrate our work into the existing government systems, so that whatever rights or facilities are available to other children are automatically available to all these children as well.
Thank you, Sampada. Dominique?
Thank you. So for us in South Africa, as a general rule, we have very good policies, but very bad implementation. And you can argue it from multiple levels, but at the end of the day, what often happens is that at an implementation level, issues around disability become something that government doesn't necessarily want to deal with directly. And so for us, there are many things that we need to do to work towards inclusive education for children with disability. The one is that we have a very strong focus on partnerships. The partnerships are both the government themselves, provincial, national, and local government, and also with other organizations in the communities, which I've already spoken about. But by partnering, we can then work towards making sure that disability is actually prioritized at a government level, and also that there is grassroots support for this kind of work within the communities. In South Africa recently, there's been a move towards having the early childhood development space being held within the Department of Basic Education rather than the Department of Social Service, DSD, Department of Social Development. And one of the things about this also means that we're able to move the work on disability and inclusive education into a space of protection, from a space not only of protection, which is important, but also as an early learning focus. And that's going to be important because, as already has been mentioned, young children are often excluded. They might stay at home. And so this may be an opportunity for us to ensure that young people are provided the opportunities to come into school, to be have schools prioritized at an early childhood level. And then also about making sure that there is coordinated consortiums and ecosystems. So having the kind of advocacy at a grassroots level, so working within people, organizations within communities that then feed into a more national and regional level advocacy. And at the end of the day, also using international bodies so that we can advocate. So things like the UN and structures at an international or AU level that can then feed into advocating for the needs of children with disability is a really important part of the work that we think needs to happen to ensure access for young children with disabilities and ECDs.
Thank you, Dominique. Yoav, you have the last 2 minutes.
Okay, so first of all, we can use multiple strategies in order to work with the government. We can use the method of struggling and demonstrated and being very, very against policy and in a very active way. We can go to courts and use our rights in order to change policies, our legal rights, and we can work with the government and learn with them together and cooperate in order to do in order to bring them into a new policy. I said all that because I think one thing that needs to be sure that the government will know that every strategy is on the table. We can, if we cannot get it in a collaborative way, we will do it another way if we really believe it. And that is very, very important. But in this particular model that I talked about, we are established committee of thinking with the government on the issues, and all the important people sit on that committee And we didn't thought only professionally who needs to be there, we also thought politically who needs to be there. And we started as learning together issues and profiling how we're going to try the new model in the field. Ask them to help us to choose the places that we try it in, so they feel that it's their own. After we established the model, we wrote policy paper with a budget, with them together. And now the highest professionals in the ministries behind that model, we can go to the political level and said, well, it's not only us think it's your professional thinking it, and sign it, want it, think that this is the way, and that is a very good way. It's not promising anything because government can change, you know, but the fact that they know that every strategy is on the table help us also.
Thank you, Yoav, and thank you to each of the panelists for sharing their wisdom and best practices. You are the innovators and the path breakers, the one who are showing governments the way forward, and we hope that they will be wise enough to listen, to learn, and to support and to help implement. Thank you everyone for joining us.